Good morning. After discussing the order in which the parshas are inserted into the box of the Tefillin and the two views, Rashi and Batim, at length.
One document today?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We're going back to the Gemara.
Perfect.
So you get to continue. So I'm going to translate the Gemara literally, and I'm going to show you on the side a Rashi and a Bach, and we'll see what's going on and how it has a little bit of bearing actually on our previous discussion over the last couple of days. There's a Magen Avraham there and others. Okay. Last two lines on the first page there, Lamed Daled Lamed Beis 34b. Amar Rav Chananel. Rav Chananel said, Amar Rav and Rav. Hichlif Parshiyoseh. If one mixed around the order of the parshiyos, of the passages that are to be written in the Tefillin.
Paragraphs.
Psulis, paragraphs, passages.
Okay.
Parshiyos actually literally means a section, but a paragraph, if you will. Psulos, they are invalid. Okay. Amar Abaye says, Lo Yamran is only said, Elo Gviyasa Lebraisa, Ubraisa Legviyasa. It's only if you mixed the parshas that should be on the outside with the paragraphs, the parshas that should be on the inside, and the one from the inside to the outside. So with the head tefillin, it's easier to visualize, although the same halacha applies to the hand tefillin as well. But whichever one you are, the Rashi and Tam, you have parshas on the outside. If you mix those into those, or those with those, that's it. But avol gviyasa legviyasa, you mix the outside one on the right with the outside one on the far left, uberaisa lebraisa, or the inside one to the right to the inside one to the left. Then in Abaye's view, it's Abaye. Sorry?
Baryasa is the outside, Giviyasa.
Sorry, other way around, yeah. Same thing. Sorry, my mixed master translation. If you mix the inside one with the inside one, the outside one with the outside one, your Bryce is the outside one, less laba, no problem. Okay? So in Abaye's view, mixing up with the order is only a question of the exterior ones with the interior ones and vice versa, whereas mixing up the interior ones with each other, the two interior ones, and the two exterior ones with each other is not a problem in Abaye's view. Amalei Rava responds to Abaye. Ma'ishna, why are you making a distinction? Gviyasa lebraisa, the interior with the exterior. Ubraisa leviyasa, and the exterior with the interior. Deloi, where there you're saying you cannot get that done, that's invalid. Why? Because you're arguing, presumably, that the exterior ones must be exterior. And the way in which the Gemara describes exteriors, they need to see the air. That is to say, they shouldn't be locked in. So in your view, whatever's on the exterior must remain exterior in that it's closest to the outside, closest to the air in the Gemara's language. And therefore, if you mix those exterior ones with the interior ones, like a chazia, it doesn't get to see the air. It's trapped, being surrounded by other passages. And likewise, and those interior ones that are not supposed to be exposed to the air, because it's supposed to be interior, chazia, and by switching them with the exterior ones, now they see the air. So that's presumably why you, Abaye, are saying that mixing up interior with exterior is a problem. So if that's your logic, why not take it the next step further? Braisa lebraisa, mixing up the exterior ones with each other, the gviyasa legviyasa, and the mixing up the interior ones with each other, nami, should also be a problem. Why? The one who needs to see the air on the right side, meaning it has to be exterior on the right end, is now in your scenario seeing the air of the left. In other words, if you're being particular about where they stand, then be particular all the way. Why halfway? You're saying for some reason the interior ones need to be interior, the exterior ones need to be exterior, but which exterior doesn't matter. If you care that they should be exterior, why shouldn't you take it the next step further and care as to which exterior they are? And thus, if it's supposed to be exterior on the left, it can't be exterior on the right, and vice versa. Udismoil, and the one who's exterior on the left, Kachazi Avir Diyamin, is now seeing air on the left, on the right side. It's being exterior on the right side. Same air, but it's left side air, right side air. Especially if you're going to talk about Kabbalah, these have very big significance. As we'll learn.
Are they wrapped up?
Sorry?
Are they wrapped up in a roll?
Yes, inside. Yeah, actually, Taisus mentioned that there is even a custom. Taisus on the bottom there, Shin. Yeah, it's in there. From Moshe Rabbi, it's a custom from post Talmudic age to wrap the scrolls inside another empty parchment to keep it even more insulated, meaning you have the parchment with the writing, and then an empty parchment.
So they all get the same amount of air then?
It's not about physical air. It's about it's a way of saying being exterior versus interior. It's not about the actual air. I don't know why the Gemara uses that language, but I'm sure there's significance, and I wouldn't laugh at it, God forbid. But what it means on the simple reading is exterior versus interior. That's what it means when it says seeing air. It doesn't mean actual air. But at any rate, you're talking about wrapping it up. So yes, they're all rolled, and there's even a view, as I mentioned, which says that they should be that even the scrolls themselves that have the writing should be then wrapped again in a empty parchment without any writing, and then inserted. The halacha is it's better to do it that way. If you don't have it, it's still kosher. So I don't have them here, but one of the tefillin that I wasn't covered completely in an empty one, but had like a strip of empty parchment wrapping around the parchment with the writings. Maybe it was in service to that view. I don't know, but there is such a
little string as well.
A little string. Well, string is something else. But this is talking about a parchment, not just a string.
And a string.
String is something else. That's something else. But this is talking about a parchment. At any rate, so therefore, Rabbi says Eloy Shno. Therefore, it doesn't matter. Rabbi comes to the conclusion that it doesn't matter how you mix them up. It's always invalid. Interior to exterior, exterior with exterior, interior with interior. If you mixed up the order, it's invalid. Now I want to show you something. Look at the top right Rashi. Mm-hmm. Yeah. V'yasa lebraisa, all the way top, right column, all the way on the top. So we're talking about mixing up the interior, the exterior with the interior, the exterior. What are we mixing up? In what fashion? What does Rashi say? Shekosav, that he wrote. V'haya kiviyacha, the passage v'haya kiviyacha, the passage of whatever it is. Let's say the v'haya kiviyacha in Rashi's view is number 2, going from the right. Shema, right? Because he goes in the order of as they appear in the Torah. Kadesh, V'hai Kiviyacha, Shema, V'hai Mishmaya. Right? So V'hai Mishmaya is set number 2. Mm-hmm. So he wrote it, Shakasav, he wrote it, Kodim LaKadesh, before Kadesh, which is number 1. So he wrote Parsha number 2 before Parsha number 1. The Nas is Pnim Milchatoina, and now as a result of that, the interior one, which is Parsha number 2, V'hai Kiviyacha, became exterior number 1, in the exterior. Okay. So what was the first word Rashi said? Shekasav, that he wrote it. But look, there's a little aleph there inside of a little parentheses. Mm-hmm. And that takes us to the right side where it says Agoy Sabach. So all the way to the right margin. So there's the first one is Maser Sashas, and the next one is Agoy Sabach. And there he says, Rashi de Ramasuk Vyasa. See the Rashi de Ramasuk Vyasa Braisa, where it says Shenosan, where he inserted, not wrote. So what's the Gemara talking about here when it says making a mistake? Writing out of order, or positioning them out of order? Putting them in, inserting them. So when it comes to the hand tefillin, there is only the issue of writing. Unless you're doing the second rate where you're writing it on 4 different parchments and taking them together. But presumably there is only writing, not inserting. In head tefillin, there is an issue of inserting. So
the space which they occupy is extremely important as a result.
100%.
Exactly, and it's like when Kabbalah speaks about Hashem's name.
Yeah.
The same way, for example, it's the spaces that it occupies which are just as important as the letters themselves.
100%. Yeah. So in the head tefillin, presumably there could be a thing like this, where you write them in order, and you insert them out of order, or you write them out of order and insert them in order. Right. So to exactly know what this Gemara is talking about is a little bit unclear, because Rashi himself is unclear. Even if you go with Rashi's version where it opens up with Shekasav, not the way the Bach changes it, Shenosan, where he placed it. You go with Rashi's version which says Shekasav, that he wrote it out of order, and that's the issue with the Gemara here. But what's Rashi's conclusion? The Nas is Primi Chitzayna. The external becomes the internal, as if the issue is the placement, not the writing. Now, the end is that the halacha is actually concerned with both. This is the Ramah writes this in beginning of Simon Beis, and interestingly, the source is not this Gemara. The source is somewhere else. The Gemara says Vahayu, that you have to write them in order. The pasuk says Vahayu, they shall be, and as we'll learn soon, Vahayu means they should be as they are. That is to say, the writing has to be done in the order as they appear in the Torah. So in terms of placement, presumably you rely on this past week's Gemara where we're talking about that length, about the difference between Rashi and Tosfos. That Gemara already told us that they have to be placed in order. The Gemara which says Vahayu, that they have to be written as they are appear in the Torah, already tells it to be written in order. So what exactly is this Gemara saying we didn't know from the other two Gemaras? about Hichlif that he made him out of order. It's not 100% clear exactly what this Gemara means. That seems to be where on the one hand Rashi writes Nasan, because they wrote them out of order, and then Agai Sabach changes to say Nasan that he placed them out of order. So what exactly this Gemara means is unclear, but the halacha remains the same, that they have to be placed in the proper order, and, at least according to the Ramah, written in the right order. So what happens? Here's where it becomes complicated. In Rabbeinu Tam's view, in Rashi's view is very simple, because in Rashi's view, they are written in order as they appear in the Torah, and they're placed in the order as they're written in the Torah. Right? Kadesh, Shema, Mishmoya, as they appear in the Torah, 1, 2, 3, 4. But in Rabbeinu Tam, it's Kadesh, and then Shema, Mishmoya. So you're going 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're not placing them in order. So in the Het Tefillin, it's easy. You write them in order as they appear in the Torah, and then you insert them in the order of Rabbeinu Tam, which is not exactly in the order of the way they appear in the Torah. But when it comes to the hand Tefillin, which is all written on one parchment, so what do you have to do? So you're writing from right to left. You write the first 2 parshas. That's the order of Torah. The next parsha as appears in the Torah appears according to Tosfos, according to Rabbeinu Tam, at the other extreme. So when you're writing your Tefillin, it's with the Magen Avraham comments and others, and this is the way it's done, at least certainly in the Alter Rebbe, that you write the first 2 parshas on the right side of your Tefillin, you leave an empty space, you write the 3rd parsha, which is inserted last in Rabbeinu Tam's thing, and then you go back to the empty space to write the other one. So it's written in order as they appear. This is one of the only things, there's a few things that the Sefer can't check, but this is one of the only things the Sefer can't check. If I buy a pair of Rabbeinu Tam, I'm completely trusting the Sefer that he did that. When I bring it to later to get checked, the Sefer can see if they appear on the page in the order that Rabbeinu Tam says they should appear on the page. But he cannot tell you if the guy who originally wrote it in the order as they appear in the Torah, meaning to say that he left space and then came back to write the second thing, the 4th one.
What do you mean by leave space?
Because you're writing from right to left, but you have to place them 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to write 1, 2, leave space.
Leave space on the parchment.
On the parchment.
On the parchment. Okay.
Go to write number 3, which is all the way at the exterior left, and then come back to write number 4 because you have to write them as they appear in the Torah. Value, right? So it's one of those things that the person checking your tefillin cannot tell what the person who wrote it did it in the hand tefillin of your Rabbeinu Tam.
Actually, it's very interesting because it's the same as if you're reading the left side from Hebrew and the other side from English.
From English, yeah. That's
so
Rabbeinu Tam's view.
Right, 2 columns, exactly.
You're going both ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this is really another reason why you really have to.
English, but read Hebrew.
No. From the left, you're reading from the way you read in Hebrew.
Just still writing.
On the right hand side, you're writing as if you're reading in English.
Yeah, it's being inserted as if you're reading in English.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
so this
inserted.
is as if you're writing it.
So when you open it up,
Exactly.
you're going the other way.
Right.
So
But he had to do it in such
That's
a way
correct.
that you read as if in Hebrew.
So here's another reason why you have to make sure that the scribe you're getting from is a real God-fearing Jew.
Yeah.
Because if he's sitting alone in his own house,
How we have to
and he
trust
started
him.
writing, he started writing two parshas.
Exactly.
He's going to waste the last 4 hours if he started doing it by mistake.
With shifting too, with anything. I mean, how
You have to really trust this guy. In other words, there are certain things you can observe and see if he did it right or wrong. But here you can't. This is something you can't even observe later. So you really need to trust the scribe that he's a God-fearing Jew. Okay. A few more lines in the Gemara. We'll get our little demonstrations here.
Rabbi doesn't have a rebuttal.
Sorry?
Rabbi doesn't have a rebuttal about it, like Rabbi.
Rabbi doesn't defend his position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, what was the mean in the first place? What did he think?
Doesn't defend his position, at least in the Gemara.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Okay. A little further. Two more lines in the.
It's got to have the right headspace.
Okay. Few more lines in the Gemara, gentlemen. Okay. Amar Rav Chananel. Rav Chananel further stated Amar Rav in the name of Rav. Same individual speaking in the name of the same sage. Titora the Tefillin. The quote Titora, which apparently means bridge in some language, of Tefillin, Halach Moshe Sinai is the law of Moshe Sinai. So, this is a discussion what this is, but basically it means as follows. The Titora is this flap on the bottom of your Tefillin. This flap right here. So as Rashi describes it, the Tefillin, this piece of leather is like this, it comes down. This is all made out of one box, as we mentioned before, right? This whole thing should be made out of one box, at least ideally. Little flaps come out at the end of each side. You cut the 3 here so that it can become square, and then the 4th side you leave longer, and it bends around and comes like that. See? That's Rashi's view, which it implies, as Tosfos notes, that the entire thing, she made it of one piece of leather. And then this flap on the bottom is called titura. It's the bridge. It's like a flat bridge which holds the bottom, the base of your tefillin. That's the titura. Okay? So it would seem from Rashi that the whole thing has to be one piece. Taisus just says that the flap is called titura, not necessarily made out of one piece, at least connected to the ma'avarta, which we'll learn about in a second. The ma'avarta is this bridge through which the strap goes through. Ma'avarta means something which passes through, so it's a way of, you could pull your strap this way, that way to loosen it and tighten it, so it's just a passageway, versus titura is a bridge, the flat part here holding it together. So it seems like from Rashi's view that you made it of one piece of leather, and Taisha says it doesn't have to be that way. I'm trying to find it in here. I couldn't, but so far as my memory serves me, it's kosher if it's not made of one piece of leather, but it's best to be made of one piece of leather. Just like the box itself on the top, which we said before has to be made out of one, and there are those who say if you stitched it together it's considered like it's one, but it's still best to be made out of one piece of leather itself. So here, I printed some pictures so you can visualize and see how they make these things and how it actually can be made out of one piece of leather, and then they fold it around. So you can see how one piece of leather, they have like a mold where they soften the leather after treating it, they push it into the mold, and one piece of leather, which is, I don't know how, like this big, ends up becoming a small pair of tefillin, because they need to make all these indentations and then fold them around so that they finally make one piece of leather to fold all the way over. So making these one piece of leather tefillin that much more beautiful, more difficult to make, and therefore more expensive. So that's the titura, this flap on the bottom of the tefillin. Says Rav Chanan of Rav, Halach l'Moshe Misina, it's the law passed down from Moshe that it needs to be that way. Sorry? Oh, you can see these as well, yeah. How it's made out of one flap. Here also, this is made out of, at least the ma'avarta, the passageway, and the titura is connected, but they still have other pieces of leather stitched together, as you can see here.
There's nothing in there, right?
Yeah, it's a non-kosher pair of tefillin that a scribe gave me, just I use it for demonstrations.
Ma'avarta is like an overpass.
Sorry?
An overpass.
Ma'avarta is like an overpass, meaning a place,
Exactly.
it's a passageway, as we'll see in a second.
Right.
Yeah. Amar Abaye, Ner Shabbos. Amar Abaye further states, Ma'avarta the tefillin, the passageway, the little loop which we saw there, the place through which these straps go, is also a log that we got down from Moshe Rabbeinu that it has to be that way. V'amar Abaye says, and we'll do two more halachas, this one and the next one. Shin shel tefillin, the shin that appears on the outside of the tefillin, right, which is basically an indentation. They have a mold with an impressed shin. Then you press that against the soft leather, and then it makes a embossed shin on the outside of your tefillin box. That too, says Abaye, is halacha l'Moshe Sinai, is a law we derive from Sinai, which means all these laws are not derived from the verses, but they are passed down as a tradition. God told Moshe, Moshe told his student, who told his student, who told his student, to come all the way down to us. So it's a unique law like that. And tefillin, for some reason, has many laws like that, as we'll learn going forward. Different laws that are passed down, tradition, from Moshe Rabbeinu all the way to us, that this is the way it should be done.
So it wasn't the
So far.
sages who started all this?
No, this came from Moshe Rabbeinu. So the other things are, everything came from Moshe Rabbeinu through Torah. The difference is, are we deriving it from the verses themselves and using the system of interpretation that God gave Moshe to try to understand how to extrapolate from the verse what the meaning is, versus God told Moshe, forget interpretation, this is what you have to do. And so far we have three items related to the tefillin that are like that. The titura, the flap on the bottom, the mavarta, the space through which the strap goes, and the shin on the outsides. And then Tosfos puts on the side that the ga'onim, Moshe Rabba, in others, the ga'onim, that is the post Talmudic generation of sages, have left us with with an oral tradition, which presumably predates them too, that on the right side it should be a 3-pronged shin, and on the left side a 4-pronged shin, which Kabbalistically has much significance. But, as Tosfos notes, if you accidentally mix them around, they still remain kosher. But of course, why would you want to have second rate? You want to have the best. So, as we talked about yesterday, you're taking on a mitzvah, take it on the best. So you want to have a pair of tefillin, get the nicest pair. So right side 3, left side 4. Okay, one more halacha, and we kind of addressed this in previous class, but we'll just review it. The tzarech, and it's required, she'egia charetz, that the scratch on the head tefillin that separate the 4 boxes, yeah. So that scratch should reach that the scratch should reach l'makam hatefer, to the place of stitching, that is all the way to the base of the tefillin. It should go all the way down. Now, Rav Dimi ben Adai Amar, Rav Dimi ben Adai says, Kiven de minkar, so long as it's recognizable, light sarich, you don't need it. In other words, as long as you can identify on the outside that there are 4 different boxes, it doesn't need to go all the way to the bottom. Nonetheless, as we mentioned in the previous class, that it's our custom, and the best type of tefillin are like that, where not only is it a scratch all the way to the bottom, but actually separate. You could, in theory, take a very, very thin string and put it all the way through tefillin from top to bottom. Those are the best kinds of tefillin. There are others, as I mentioned before, where they have separations on the inside and the outside is just a scratch. And because of, as we're saying here, it's still kosher. Even if the scratch doesn't go all the way to the bottom, it's still kosher. This is actually mentioned in halacha. Rav Dimi's comment is mentioned in halacha. But all of this is only, I don't want to say second rate, God forbid, but it's not the best.
I mean a mufchar.
It's not min mufchar. The absolute best pair of tefillin is, if not just the scratches go to the bottom, but an actual separation. So it's called prudes. The 4 boxes are actually separated, and there's a stitch, a small, thin string that's stitched through it. You don't see it because it's under the paint, but a nice pair of tefillin would have separate all the way to the bottom, especially today's day and age because of hydraulic pressure. We can make it nice and square without any glue. So because we can do it, one ought to try to get such a pair of tefillin. And the Alter Rebbe is in the Siddur. I mentioned yesterday that the Siddur, sometimes the Alter Rebbe is more stringent than he is in the Shulchan Aruch itself, because Shulchan Aruch is consolidating previous opinions, whereas the Siddur, he's talking the way he thinks it should be done, especially talking to Anshe Shleimenu, the people who are his followers, and there he enjoins us to get to Pir Tefillin, which is Prudos, where each of the 4 boxes are separate all the way to the bottom, not just a scratch, as the Gemara says here, but at the very least, if you're not going to have it separate all the way to the bottom exterior, with the string going through, at least a scratch to the bottom, and if not that, at least it should be recognizable from the outside. That's the bare minimum, that it's 4 different boxes. So in other words, having 4 boxes on the inside and the outside, it's not recognizable as 4 separate compartments, is invalid. That for sure. Better than that, separate a scratch all the way to the bottom. Better than that, absolute separation between all 4 tefillin, all 4 compartments going top to bottom.
Like a glove.
Like a glove.
Yeah.
So now imagine, if you're having prudos, you have pairs of tefillin which are, the 4 compartments are actually separate, and the entire thing's made out of one piece of leather. The effort you have to do that, to make one piece of leather that goes up, makes 4 fingers that are all compressed to be square, plus it has flaps coming out on the side, plus it wraps all the way around here like this, all one box. It's very, very difficult. So the pictures I have there, you can actually visualize and see how there are 4 different. If you pass them here, I'll show you which one. I'll help you a bit. Thank you. This one here, if you look at these 2, that and that, if you look at these 2 closely, you can actually see how it's one box, all separate, and yet it's 4 compartments, all separate, made out of one piece of leather. So you can imagine the piece of leather, before it came to this size, was much, much bigger, to be able to cover all those folds to make it one piece. Here, you can pass it around, you can see how between the boxes and the bottom, they're not straight. Even though when they appear here, because they cover it with a nice paint, it looks like it's flat. But inside here, it's really folded leather, compressed very tightly. Because otherwise, how do you have 4 compartments that are all one piece if it's not folded at the bottom? You have extra leather popping out, right? So compress it all and then paint it and cover it to make it look like a nice square is a whole art. While underneath, if you scratched off the paint, you would see leather compressed in all kinds of funny shapes to squish it together to make it exactly square, to not lose its one piece of leather, and yet maintain 4 individual compartments that are not even attached together by glue. Giving you a real idea of the art that goes into making a good pair of tefillin, and literally takes months. Literally takes months till you treat the leather to make it soft enough, and then put them in the presses to let them dry up in there, and then the pressures, and all the while you have to make sure the leather doesn't rip. While you're pushing all the soft leather into all these compartments, all done by hand, no machine. Hydraulic pressure, yes, but not machine. So they'll even the stitching, by the way, which we'll get to soon. The stitching here, they don't do it by machine. They have a guy pressing on his foot like this, or stitching. It's all done by hand. And so it really gives you an idea of the art of making tefillin, why it costs so much, and why all these things are so valuable in bringing you the best kinds of tefillin we could possibly get. God willing, after Shabbos, we'll get to the scroll upon which the tefillin are made, and different things that we learned from Halacha L'Moshe Messina that we passed down from Moshe Rabbeinu, who taught us that the tefillin should be a certain way. Have a wonderful day and a good Erev Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you very much.